Coming up next, Murfreesboro Storytellers, and we'll tell you all about both local chapters of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Welcome to Murfreesboro Storytellers, a monthly series of City TV. This month, our topic is the Daughters of the American Revolution, and we're happy to have as our guests the regents of the two chapters of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Andrea Calfee, who is the regent for the Colonel Hardy Murphy chapter. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you, John.
And Mary Lou Veal, who is the regent of the Captain William Lytle chapter. Welcome, Mary Lou.
Thank you.
The Daughters of the American Revolution, two organizations very active in our community. How did the D.A.R. begin? Andrea?
Our chapter was founded in 1910. The organizing regent was Mary Noai Murphy.
Noted author?
She was a noted author, writing under the pen name Egbert Craddock. And I think what she wrote were novels,
right,
and adventure stories. And I think she also wrote some history about Tennessee and the mountains. I've seen that book.
Charles Egbert Craddock, and at that time
Charles
it wasn't
Egbert.
fashionable for a lady to be a writer, as I understand it. So many of them took a man's name as a pen name.
Yes.
Interesting.
And apparently Theodore Roosevelt was one of her fans. And he came to town on the train, as I understand, passing through Murfreesboro, and he asked to see that famous author and was amazed that it was a woman. She was a woman.
Mary Lou, tell us about the William Lytle chapter now. How did it start and when?
Well, it was named for Captain William Lytle. It began in 1924. And Captain William Lytle was a Revolutionary War patriot, and he actually owned much of the land in Murfreesboro. And actually today we have several members who are lineal descendants of Captain William Lytle.
Both chapters named for heroes of the past, very
Yes.
significant people in the history of the city of Murfreesboro.
Yes.
How does one become a member of a D.A.R. chapter? Can I become one? I'm
No.
not a doctor.
You could become a member of the Sons of the Revolution.
Okay, the S.A.R.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now, how do
all
you
of our
become a member of
members,
the
all of our members are lineal descendants
All right.
of patriots who either fought during the Revolution or aided the Revolution in some way.
I see.
And there are women who
Yes.
you can claim as a patriot. There are women who aided the revolutionary cause. I'm trying to think if our chapter has any descendants of female patriots, but I can't think
I don't
right
think
now.
ours does, but I've seen in the magazine that there are some women.
Who is your patriot? Do you have a name?
My patriot is a man from Vermont. His name was Caleb Hendy, and he rendered service because he was old when the revolution took place, and his son, Caleb Jr., was a general in the War of 1812. So from Vermont, from a small, tiny town of Vermont, but they're part of the Green Mountain Boys, which was the famous Revolutionary era. And Vermont was not even a state or a colony.
Right.
It was contested. Apparently New Hampshire claimed some of the land and New York State claimed some of the land. So the Vermonters got kind of fierce about that. And the Green Mountain Boys was in part established to kind of protect the rights they saw as Vermonters.
Mary Lou, who is your patriot?
My patriot was Enos Meade. My ancestor was Enos Meade, and he was a private. He went into the Army as an 18-year-old, and nobody knows how much service he actually saw, but from what we can tell, he rode the route from Greenwich to Westchester County along that seaboard there, and he actually was one of the ones who warned of Putnam's arrival. And Greenwich, the town of Greenwich, was taken over. We don't know what his role was. We just know that he was a private during the Revolutionary War.
How do you trace your lineage? Is there some department at national headquarters that helps you do this, or how do you know?
Yes. The chapters each have registrars and membership chairmen, and so people approach those people. They find out if they're interested, and they learn a little bit about what D.A.R. is. And I know in our chapter, our registrar and our membership chairman are very busy processing applications, and it's easy, relatively easy to do this if you have like an aunt or someone you've heard of that was a member of the D.A.R. I know that's what I did, because I wasn't a member until about 6 years ago when I came to Murfreesboro. So I'd never been a member before, but I knew I had an aunt. My father's sister had been a member way back in the 1920s. And so I used that number, and they were able to connect it. And you have to prove your first 3 generations. So I had to show a birth certificate, my marriage certificate, and then I'm still here, so I don't have that third piece. But then you go up, and then you show your father or your mother, or, you know, whichever one you trace from, and then you have to get those records. And that means writing away to, I know I had to write away to California, a small county seat up in Northern California, to get my grandparents' wedding document. So that was from 1886. Wow. So they make you prove that, because what they're finding is 50 years is here and gone in just a blink of an eye, and the D.A.R. thinks long term. And what I was told was they want us today, when we're applying, to get that information so that they have the record. That way, when my unknown great-grandchild wants to join, they have that, that material will be a lot easier.
Yeah. What they've been doing lately, the last 2 or 3 years, is they've been digitizing all of those records that are at the D.A.R. So that future generations will have them. My research was different from Andrea's, because I'm the first in my family to join the D.A.R. My mother was always interested, and as I was growing up, she always said, you know, we could be a member of the D.A.R. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And so she started doing research and collecting documents like marriage licenses, birth certificates, death certificates. And then I took them over because I got interested in it. And I completed the research using a computer and a family tree program. And we were very lucky, because we found the Bible record for Enos Mead's granddaughter, who is my ancestor. Without that, I probably couldn't have joined. So I was able to prove my descent from Enos Mead. I also have just recently submitted 3 more that are called supplemental applications. And with those applications, I'll have 4 ancestors, and there are probably many more that I could prove. It's a matter of whether I want to do the research. But many...
Or pay the money.
Or pay the money, yeah. Many D.A.R. members have multiple ancestors on their ribbons to show. And I'm one of those who, my family was here very, very early in this country, so I descend from many people who were involved in the Revolution.
Yeah. I have that too. I guess it sounds like the New England connection too, because maybe the towns were closer together there or something, but it's...
I think so. The population was a lot more concentrated than you found in other parts of the country.
They founded Hartford and things back in the 1630s.
I believe you told me that Fort Meade, Maryland was named for your ancestor.
Oh, is that right?
Not for my ancestor, but for the same family.
For the Meade family.
Oh,
the Meade family, right. Yeah, the Meades were a huge family. In fact, I descend from the immigrant's son had, I think he had 8 sons, and I descend from 3 of them.
Okay.
So I have lots of Meade blood coursing through.
Well, I have to stick in when you mentioned Westchester County, because that's where I was born and grew up.
Oh, okay.
In Westchester, New York. Yep, right outside the city.
Before we go any further, I do want to mention that we have a strong connection, even beyond you 2 ladies, to the D.A.R. from Murfreesboro with Sarah King, Mrs. Huey King, who was the President General of the D.A.R. back several years ago, and we'd hoped to have Sarah on the program today, but it just didn't work out. But she brings a great bit of history to
Sarah
to your organization.
she is an incredible person, and I'm very grateful that I've been regent and gotten to know her.
I'm sure.
Because the others, you know, who've been here forever, you know, probably take her presence for granted, and I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to know her. And
you certainly are.
She's a wonderful fountain of advice.
Oh, I'm sure.
She's sharp as a tack, and she really cares about the D.A.R. and about our country too. She's a real patriot.
Because I remember that's a 3-year term, and she was traveling all that time, I think.
Her term in the D.A.R., it's called her administration, took place during the celebration of the Treaty of Paris, ending the American Revolution. So that would have been 1783. So it was the bicentennial was 1983, and so it was the 3-year term was within that. So her great memory is of marching up the Champs-Élysées in Paris with with her good friend and our chapter member, Mrs. MacArthur, Jean MacArthur.
Jean Marie Faircloth
Yeah,
MacArthur.
the
yes.
widow of General MacArthur.
Right.
And it was quite a day. They will never forget. They had dinner in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles that night.
Oh, my word.
And so it was enormously moving and a wonderful thing. So Sarah, yes, that was her good fortune to have that event take place under her watch.
And in that connection, one of the great days of history in Murfreesboro was the day that Jean Marie Faircloth MacArthur brought the general back to Murfreesboro.
Oh, my.
April 30th. It was a tremendous day, 51, I believe it was.
Was it?
Yeah.
During the Korean War.
And it was just a great day for the whole community.
Oh, that's
Tell me about the D.A.R. of today now. What do you do as members or as organizations in the community? Why would a lady want to trace her heritage and become a member, and what would she be doing as a member of either of your chapters?
Well, the D.A.R. is a lineal society,
All
of
right.
course, but it's also a service organization.
That's right.
And our service involves three major areas. One is in the area of education. We provide a lot of educational materials about our country, about its history, about the flag. And then we have the goal of patriotism. And of course, we celebrate the veterans. We have a very active group of women who are very involved in veterans affairs across the state, our chapters, and in the nation. And then we do genealogical history, of course, and we celebrate history at every meeting, I think. And then the final would be historic preservation.
right.
You want to talk about that a little bit because your chapter's been
Well,
involved
yeah,
in that.
we're those are the three big ones. Our chapter's very involved in education, I should say. We go to the schools. We have the Junior American Citizens for the young people in all the schools. And then we also have literacy outreach that we conduct. We provide books to Hobgood School, have a book giveaway every year. And so we kind of involve a different group within the chapter, people who are very interested in that and maybe not so interested in some of the other things we do. I mean, there's a lot that a member can do or very little, just depending on their interest. So I'd never been a member of an organization that was kind of so wide. I should say their focus is not narrow, it's wide. And so, yes, all the patriotic things we are involved with. I know that our chapter has a person, she's a retired Army officer, and she's active with the Fisher House. And the Fisher House, Tennessee Fisher House.
That'd be built at the VA Medical Center.
Right, and so she serves on that board and comes to our meetings and reports to us, and the chapter contributes where it can. And I think more and more is going to be asked of us as the Fisher House does get built, and we're asked to help with that and with the families who come there. I think
We
that's
also
coming.
raise money at every meeting. We do a program called Happy Bucks, and we end our meetings by telling something that we're happy about that day, and we put a buck or more in the box, right? And so we collected last year. Our chapter saved $250 and donated to the Fisher House, and this year we're doing the same thing. We also have a board member on the Fisher House board, and so we get updates every month about how that project is going.
How regularly do your chapters meet?
Once a month.
Once a month,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, and what's that, 8 times a year? Or it's there's several months where we don't meet, like December just passed, and we keep in touch with emails and that sort of thing. Our chapter, we were talking about having a newsletter, but at this point mailing is so expensive that unless
Email
people
is easy.
get email.
Email is the way a lot of organizations do it now, rather than actually through
So
the mail.
it's problematic because we do have a large number of members who are not email recipients.
They don't use
Understand.
computers.
So that they're kind of left out in a way, but we provide the yearbook every year, and we list the chapter meetings and dates and times. And
you
so,
probably have a phone tree like we do.
well, yeah, there's
We
some
call
who
people.
we do phone. Not a great number, but we do that.
I was going to mention that as we are in January now, we're gearing up to recognize children in the community. Like in February, we recognize the winners of the American History essay, and we will be in, I'm sure we're going to have them at our meeting, a 5th grade winner, a 6th grade winner, a 7th grade, and 8th grade, and they read their essays.
Wonderful.
This year, the essay topic was Forgotten Patriots. So the essays are quite interesting. I've already read our winning essays. And then in March, we recognize good citizens. The high schools in the community, we take care of 3 of the high schools, and the other chapter takes care of 3 of the high schools.
Okay.
And we give them materials, and they select someone to be their good citizen, and that person comes to the meeting in March, and they read their essays that are done. Last year, we do poster contests for children. Last year, we had the 6th grade winner who won the state contest, and she did a patriotic poster about the War of 1812. And she got to go to the state luncheon, and she got a $50 gift certificate for her winning poster.
Yeah, we had a
exciting.
winner last year too in the American History Essay Contest, a 7th grader from St. Rose's School, and it was very exciting. She and her very proud grandmother and other family members were there at the luncheon.
We're going to have the 8th grade winner this year. I've already read the essay. It's excellent. It is excellent. So I predict.
That's a prediction.
Right. We have our schools divided up, and so the local schools. So you have some of the high schools, we have some of the others, or the grade schools, and so we encourage
we don't
participation.
overlap. We kind of have
Each
schools
has
that
their
we
dividing.
take care
Right.
of, so everybody gets to
Is the
participate.
essay topics given to you by the national
Yes.
organization?
Yes, yes.
What else do they do out of the national headquarters? As I recall, it's a
goodness.
Don't
it's a
think.
very impressive facility right across the White House. as I recall.
Yes,
It
it's
is.
wonderful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, they do everything that we're talking about: patriotism, preservation, history, education. They do it all from the national
So
level.
they have staffing there to support all of
Yes.
these.
In fact, the
emphases.
current President General herself worked in the development office at national headquarters for several years.
Development defined as fundraising.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes. So when she, puts it to you, you're paying attention. She knows how to
I'm
do
sure
it.
of that.
And she's very skilled, and she's finishing her 3rd year this June, and the annual convention of the Daughters of the American Revolution is held every year nowadays in June, and so that people who are there can march in the parade on the 4th of July in Washington if they wish to stay. I
been
went
there on one
last year.
occasion.
Going this year. You're going.
You're going.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Good.
I'm going on the Tennessee bus.
Good.
So
Oh, you
I'll-
are? Okay.
Yes.
I was there
We
several
have
years
chapter
ago, so
members
it's quite
going.
an event. Huh?
Yes, and so they have a bus that starts in Memphis, and then it comes,
picks you up.
Goes
picks
across,
people
yeah.
up, and then it takes several days to get there. I understand it's
Right.
quite a party.
Yes.
And they arrive in Washington, I think, Wednesday? Is that when you're
I
getting?
think that's when we
Yeah,
arrive,
so,
yes.
and then it's called Continental Congress is the name of the convention. So this year's Continental Congress will start that Wednesday before June 30th, 6th or something.
Yeah, something around there.
And you meet there at headquarters?
And so they
Yes.
meet at headquarters. They stay at it used to be at the JW Marriott.
They won't take buses anymore.
Yeah.
I think we're staying someplace else.
So there's Tennessee they're putting their people so that you get to ride back and forth to
Yes, from the hotel to
Okay.
the Continental Congress.
The
on the
JW
bus.
right downtown on 14th
Yeah.
in Washington.
it's
you're talking
on
about.
Right.
17th.
Okay.
And last year I attended because I wanted to get my pin and shake hands with Mrs. Wright, the President General,
Okay.
because I was invited to do so to
She was on
represent
the
the chapter.
stage.
Quite
She
an
was
honor.
up
I was on the stage. I
yes.
was also 5 days away from coming down with pneumonia, and I didn't know it. And the night before this great stage event was the storm that hit Washington. It was called a derecha, which was a land hurricane. And the wind got to be 85 miles an hour. The day had set a record with the temperature being 104. So it was a tough day. And anyway, I got a little overtired. But I thought that because the governor of Maryland declared it a catastrophe that morning, that Saturday morning after the storm, and trees were down, power was down. Our neighborhood where I was staying with a friend in Maryland, and they were out of power. I mean, for 3 days she didn't have it, and you could hear the chainsaws cutting trees and all that. So I drove in to Washington, and I think I counted 10 different intersections where there was no traffic light functioning. And D.A.R. was going strong. Their power had never flickered. So I was sort of amazed at that, and I left my car out on the street because all the garages were shut. Gates were
place to
down.
go,
And I was 2 blocks from the White House, and I put 50 cents in the meter, and I thought, well, let's see what happens. And 6 hours later, I came back out, and the car was there. I didn't have a
been towed.
ticket.
Wow.
Nothing had happened. So
Tell me about your pens. We talked about those
Oh,
earlier.
Well, I'm wearing the ribbons with my insignia, which is the D.A.R's insignia.
Before you do, tell me where you can wear these. You mentioned this earlier.
Oh.
Mary Lou, tell us.
Only at D.A.R. functions.
Okay.
And we thought this might be a D.A.R.
I think
function.
disqualified.
I wasn't sure, so I didn't wear my
Disqualified.
pins.
Well, we're talking
but
about
Andrea did.
Yeah,
You can
and
have Andrea's.
it's certainly educational to
I have
to
many
learn.
of the same pins
Sure.
that she
Yeah,
does.
and so every member who joins has a national insignia that they wear in this position, and
Based
it
on
has
the
their
spinning wheel.
Yes, and it's the spinning wheel with 13 spokes in the
Original
wheel,
colonies.
13 colonies, and then the distaff or the what do they call it? Not hemp, wool or whatever was used
material.
to spin is behind it, and it's at an angle, so it isn't straight up and down. That is set at an angle. Everything has a meaning, and behind my pin is my national number engraved on the back. Then I move up to my patriot. As I said, he's a man from Vermont, and then above that is the Vermont state pin. And then our chapter was 100 years old in 2010, so we are qualified to purchase that. And above that is the chapter name, Colonel Hurdy Murfree, engraved on that bar. Then there's a Tennessee bar, because we are in Tennessee, and that's my home. And then I'm a member of the
Regents
Chapter Regents Club, which is a state association, organization. And then above that is my personal donor pin for the President General's project, which is similar to this one, which was the chapter's donation that qualifies.
Might also mention that the President General each year has a project, and they raise money for that project. And this year, it was the repair of the D.A.R. building in Washington, D.C. And then she added on the Laylight project, which has now become part of that President General's project.
That's right. And apparently the air conditioning needs fixing now, so that's
I hope they get it fixed by
more
June.
money. Yes,
So
exactly.
We're talking about considerable amount of money then to
Yes.
raise for
Yeah.
the national headquarters.
Yes, and the national headquarters is a beautiful building, as you mentioned. It's just across a stone's throw from the White House grounds, and it's often used. It's called Memorial Constitution Hall,
Oh, right. I
and it's
remember
one
that.
of the largest buildings in auditoriums in Washington, D.C. So it gets used a lot for universities have graduations there and other public gatherings. So the D.A.R. raises money by allowing groups to rent the facility when we're not there. And then apparently the colonnade that's outside the building, it's a hemisphere of these beautiful columns, and that was used when they filmed The West Wing and other shows that they could use that, and so that was kind of interesting. So
The other thing that's there is the D.A.R. library, which is very, very impressive. I've been there. There are tables on the bottom part, and then stacks and stacks and stacks of books all the way around. And then above are the ley lights, which are transparent, so the light can come in. And then also in that building is the D.A.R. Museum, which houses many of the artifacts from our history as a country. It is also quite impressive. You could spend days and days at the D.A.R. Museum and probably still not see everything.
Who has access to the library? Who's allowed to use the library?
Anyone can.
yeah, I thought the stacks were really interesting because they slide back into themselves, so you can move around. And if you need to look at another one, then you slide. I mean, they're just it's a big undertaking. One thing I should say about the D.A.R. Museum, the whole building basically has rooms that are historic rooms with historic furnishings in them, and many states have their own room, and Tennessee has its own room.
We have a room
Oh, good.
with a portrait of Andrew Jackson.
Right, and Andrew Jackson's era furnishings
Okay.
and decorative items in that. And Mrs. King is very interested in the Tennessee room of the D.A.R.
I'm sure of
and
that.
she had some things to do with that,
Yeah,
of course.
okay.
But
So
it's,
they'll have a reception there in the Tennessee room for the Tennessee delegates this summer, and
When
I'll
you
be
have the
attending
convention
that.
there.
Yes.
Mary Lou, tell me about your pen now.
Well, this pin is an eagle, and it is a fundraising pin for the Junior Society that I purchased at one of the meetings I went to.
Okay.
So one of the ways that they earn money is by allowing us to purchase different products, books, pins, scarves, you name it.
neckties for the gentlemen
Whatever
in our
you want.
family.
All right, very good.
Yes, yes. So I love my eagle pin. There's also a very expensive version of it with stones around the outside of it, but I chose this version, which I wear a lot, and I really
That's
like
nice,
it.
yeah.
Oh, very good, very good. I remember last fall there was an event over in the city cemetery with the D.A.R. Tell me what that was about and the dedication of a monument there.
Yeah, in 1933, our chapter had placed a Tennessee limestone monument with a metal plaque, and it's been determined that it was iron, which is kind of surprising because it doesn't hold up so well, but we used to think it was bronze or brass or something, and it had pretty well been neglected through the years. We found it, actually, and I was walking by, or I was looking in the cemetery, knowing that the city was about to celebrate its bicentennial, and I looked at the monument, and then to my horror, I saw it, Colonel Hardy Murfree put this there in 1933, and I thought, well, that looks terrible. So I got some of the folks in my chapter, fellow officers, we were all new at the time, this is in the spring of 2011, and we thought we have to do something. Well, to do anything, you need permission from the city because it's the city cemetery, and there's a gate. And so we became well acquainted with Patsy over in the mayor's office, who had the key. And so we would go visit our memorial, and the chapter discussed, what are we going to do with this? You know, what can we do? We don't have all that kind of money to replace it. So what we did was we learned about Dan Allen, who was a restorationist, and he did a lot of work with people at MTSU, at the Gore Center, I believe, or their Center for Historic Preservation. And so Dan was engaged by our chapter. He gave us an estimate, and we agreed to it. And he worked in the summer, this past year, well, you know, 2012, to repoint and kind of fill in where the plaque was kind of dangling. But he decided not to remove the plaque because it was found that the screws, the bolts holding it in, were made of lead, and it would have been kind of a shower of lead in the ground and all that. So we didn't do that, but we did fill in and put new mortar around it, and then he repainted it, and it's much improved. There are cracks because it is Tennessee limestone, so that the water does get into it. So we think it's good for another 50 or so years.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, though.
It really does.
Nice.
It was quite an event as a
It
part of the
was.
Yes.
bicentennial for Murfreesboro.
That's right, and it was our chapter's gift to the city.
Wonderful.
And we discovered that in 1933, the actual plaque reads about the First Presbyterian Church in Murfreesboro,
Yes,
and
right.
this is right on the site of that. That's where the city
Which
cemetery
is
is.
celebrating its 200th anniversary
Yes.
as well.
See,
Yes.
and so it worked out nicely. And we tried to replicate the event itself, and we had the Lytle chapter's regent lead the pledge, and then Susan Daniel of the Lytle chapter was also a historian of the church, and she was pleased that things went well.
It was quite a D.A.R. event.
was.
It
Well,
was
ladies,
well
thank you
attended.
so much. This has been interesting and informative to learn more about the Daughters of the American Revolution, both of your chapters. Mary Lou Veal, who is the
Yes.
regent of the Captain William Lytle chapter, and Andrea Calfee, who is the regent of the Colonel Hardy Murfree chapter. We wish you well and every success, and hope you have a big convention in Washington.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much. That's Murfreesboro Storytellers, and you know a lot more now than you ever did about the Daughters of the American Revolution.